My name is Lorna Goodison. I'm a writer. I'm the poet laureate of Jamaica. And I think today we're going to talk about my first collection of essays, which is titled Redemption Ground.
So you've obviously been writing for a very long time, and you're very well known and well respected. Could you tell us a bit about your writing career, how you started, when you first knew or wanted to become an author, and what was the first piece you ever published, if you remember, and anything else about your career that you think that is kind of interesting or unusual or helpful to anyone who wants to become a writer, for example?
Okay. Well, first of all, I didn't set out to become a writer. I grew up in a large family. I'm the eighth of 9 children. And our eldest is a journalist. So I did grow up in a house where somebody was a writer, somebody who went to work every day and earned her living as a writer. But I knew I was not a journalist, and I didn't, besides in large families, there's a simple dynamic. The job of writer was already taken. So I never thought that was going to be my job. But I was always, I knew I was some kind of artist, and I always painted and drew. And I actually trained as a painter in Jamaica and in New York at the School of the Art Students League. And the only evidence of that in my life now is that I do the covers of my books. So that the cover of, that's one of my paintings. Mm-hmm. Almost all my books have my own paintings on the cover.
That's very nice.
So I started off as a visual artist, but I was always writing, and I would get rid of them. I once made a funeral pyre in my yard and burnt them. I got rid of because I had no idea why these poems and stories kept coming. And eventually I came to the conclusion that there was nothing I could do. I had to just keep doing it. And I used to publish my work anonymously as a school. When I was in high school in Jamaica, I would publish my works under my initials because I really didn't want anybody to know what I was doing. And I didn't know how to explain, I'm writing poetry or... Mm-hmm. And then I think after I went to New York and I was there for a year at the School of the Art Students League, I wrote a long poem. I was ostensibly studying to be a painter, but I was writing as much or even more than I was painting. And at that stage, I think I just said, I don't care if everybody knows I'm a writer. So I published my first poem with my name under it. And from then, I've been, much more of a public person. I admitted that I was a writer. And once I did that, I just began to write lots. And I published my first book in 1980. And I've published 12 or 13 collections of poetry. Wow. A memoir from Harvey River. And I've just brought out Redemption Ground, which is my book of essays.
Do you think that, I didn't know that you trained as a visual artist before.
Yes.
Do you think that especially your fiction work, your poems, for example, is influenced by that training? Do you see that training?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of, I marvel because very often I do things which I learned as a painter when I'm writing. Right. For example, it's just very simple. When you're painting, say, a landscape, teachers always tell you, try to keep all rates of the painting, the canvas, going at about the same rate. Don't get off on one corner and, overwork that corner, because in the end, it'll look really unbalanced. So I try to do that with writing, not to get off too much on any one area of the story or the poem, but to somehow keep checking in with the entire poem or the entire story as I go along. Right. So that, it doesn't show that you really, really worked on one paragraph, but it didn't work so hard on the rest of it.
Yeah. I am not that familiar with your poems, but I've read a few, and thinking back to them now, it makes sense because it's very evocative and it evokes not just an image in front of my inner eye, but also it evokes emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
And that's what, to me at least, paintings and the visual arts do as well, at least when it's done well or done according to what moves me.
Yeah.
So that makes sense now, right? Okay, I had no idea. So a lot of people who are familiar with your work know you as a poet or know your poetry.
Yes.
But as you already said, you also write, you have written a memoir, but you also write short stories, and you've just come out, or not just recently, come out with an essay collection. What moved you to put together a collection of essays?
Well, I had a simple thing. I have a friend called Donna Singh, and many years ago she said to me, Lorna, you should write a book of essays. And I never forgot that. I never thought about doing that, but I don't know. I started thinking about my life once I got to, a certain age, and I thought, I've seen a lot of things and I've met a lot of people and I've had all sorts of interesting experiences, and I don't want to write stories about them or poems. And so where would all that material fit? And so I began to just write these short pieces, and eventually they became that book,
Right. And the title Redemption Ground, right? At the back of the book it says that it comes from a place in Jamaica, a marketplace, right?
Yes.
And what inspired you to choose that particular place? Is there a story behind it? Could you elaborate a little bit?
It's not so much a place, it's the idea of redemption and a redemption ground. The market itself was called Redemption Ground because I think that's where the faith keepers of like African religions in Jamaica, they would meet, and it would be a market by day, but at night it would be a place where people worshipped, had these services. So, but the whole idea of redemption, is something that is very central to my thinking, my work. The idea that, something can be redeemed. Not everything is, we have had so much loss in our history and so much that is encouraged to go to waste that, we have to think in terms of more and more think in terms of redemption. And so I'm very much obsessed with that because I don't find many examples of somebody just stepping forward and like paying the price so somebody can go free in my history. I know, and the ones I know of, I celebrate, And I myself, I'm just very concerned with that, which is why a lot of my writing, I almost read history at university, but I chose not to. Because in a way I wanted to do what I ended up doing, which is writing history from below. I'm very fascinated by those events, historical events, which have not found their way into history books. And so I've done a lot of work in the past, where I go field work, I guess. I interview people, I speak to people, and I find out all sorts of fascinating things from just talking to people in rural Jamaica, For example, we have one of our national heroes. It's a man called Paul Bogle. Was an extraordinary figure. He was a Baptist person, and he really agitated for better conditions for the Jamaican people after the emancipation of slavery, where their condition was little better than slavery, or there was no preparation or no made for them, and people were really suffering. And then there was disease and it was really appalling, and he kept petitioning the governors to do something about it. And anyway, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but he was hanged because there was an uprising. Although he didn't actually commit any acts of violence, he was hanged because of this uprising. And I'm telling this long story to say that I once went to the place where he came from. And I met somebody who told me that anybody whose name was Bogle in the wake of that uprising was, you'd be just because you had that name.
Because you could have been associated.
Yes, Right. So that became a poem called Name Change of Morant Bay Uprising. So I'm just saying that's where a lot of my poems come from actually interacting with people and speaking to them and finding out things which I never found out about in history books.
Right. Of course, you said it already, redemption is very important in your work, but also in the collection of essays. And in your essays, things like colonialism, post-colonialism, or even neo-colonialism, and the legacies of colonialism, they are quite apparent. They're not like shouty, but it's there, and it's like
because it is.
It is, and it's very, very much present. So when I was thinking about the essays and the title and the importance of redemption, I wanted to ask you, redemption for who?
For everybody, really, because when I think about my Jamaica, and I'm there all the time, because as poet laureate, and I've had these wonderful opportunities to interact with a lot of children, for example. I worked just as children in a children's home. And you just know that, some of them are so brilliant, and they're just as bright and as full of promise as anybody's children, except that the circumstances of their lives have found them orphaned and living in a children's home. And you just kind of think there should be a way where everybody can do better. Not just materially, but that's the role of the artist, isn't it? Or you should be able to write and produce things that will encourage people to see themselves. I want those children in a children's home, for example. There's a couple of them. I think they could very easily become the prime minister or something, and they should be told so.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm making myself very clear, but that's what I'm saying.
Sense. Yeah. Because I was thinking, as a white woman, I was thinking, well, and I ask myself that quite a lot. Is there a potential for redemption for us for what we have done? Personally, I don't think so. There's reparation, but not necessarily redemption. So I thought, okay, let me ask her about that. But obviously, the redemption that you are talking about is for Jamaicans.
No. I'm redemption for everybody, and I don't think with all due respect, you are a human being, and you obviously have looked into yourself in a good way, and you want to contribute good to the world. And you shouldn't even be thinking that I'm doing this because my ancestors did bad things. Just think about what you Alessandra, bring to the world, and your purity of your intentions, and work with that. Because you cannot possibly pay for the crimes or the sins of other people.
Yes.
Maybe
not pay for it, but be aware of it.
No, yes, you are, but you just, I don't know. What is just good is that I'm happy to meet you because I can tell that you're very sincere, and you want to do good. You want to put good things in the world.
Thank you.
And you want to lift up people. Well, that's what you should just work with that.
Okay.
That price is too pay. That price that is just too big for any one person to pay or for any two people to pay. I'm serious.
Thank you. That's very kind of you and very generous of you to say.
No, it is true. And the more that we just see each other in that way, I don't look at my friends and think that's my white friend who is paying for me. I just love my friends, and I have all kinds of friends. Everywhere I have friends, and it has nothing to do with how they look or anything like that. Like I said, there's purity of intention and just what kind of heart you have.
Thank you. Well, okay, redemption for everyone. We'll work with that, and
we have to, or the world, or we're going to go to hell. We have no choice. We have no choice. Yeah.
So obviously, you're Jamaican, right? And Jamaica is in this book, in Redemption Ground. It's everywhere. It's not always manifesting itself immediately, but it's there. And so I wanted to know what role Jamaica and the Caribbean in general play in your work, both in your essays, but in the entirety of your work in general.
Well, Jamaica is what I write about. I think that's what I've been given to write about. No matter what I do or where I am, I'm writing about Jamaica. I write about Jamaica even more when I'm away from it. So that's just what I do. I've stopped questioning it. I see all kinds of everything through the lens of my country and my people, and I didn't choose to be like that. That is just how I am, and that's what I do. So although I'm very at home in the wider world, I'm just not somebody who thinks, I have to be in Jamaica. I think one of the blessings for me of growing up in a big family is that I can see the world, as I I grew up surrounded by people, all kinds of different people, you know, and so I can move through the world because I just know that people are it's a complex thing, and people are, and I meet people all over the world who I could well have grown up with, you know.